Are you happy?
I'm quite happy for my age.
so then the second question is it conditional happiness?
No,
Can you take me there?
you'll see.
My head was when you mentioned sleep. You said that in deep sleep, the mind isn't there. It doesn't remember. So how do we know that I was awake in deep sleep if I can't remember it?
Yeah, no. I know that I am awake because I am always awake. Different.
Okay, but I am.
I don't know that I am awake because there are perceptions. That's very important because that's what you were implying.
Well,
You said, if there are no perceptions in deep sleep, how do I know that I am awake?
yeah, if I have no memory of that, yes, how do I know that I was awake then?
We cannot memorize our being awake. We can memorize perceptions, but we have no memory of awareness.
Yes, I agree.
That's crucial, that's very important. Awareness, we verify it in the moment, but as we verify it, we understand that it is always present. But in fact, what does always present mean? Always present doesn't mean that it flows with time. It means it's timeless. Times appears in it, changes appear in it, perceptions appear in it. But we know that we are conscious not because we have perceptions, but because we know it directly.
Yeah. So what do you mean by when you said, at some point, like, oh, I never sleep, you're asleep?
The body sleeps, the mind sleeps.
Okay, but this thought, oh, I never sleep, but this happened after sleep. You woke up and you're like, oh yeah, I never sleep. While you're sleeping, you don't say that. You don't say, oh, I never sleep.
No, because I know myself now. I know. Because I know that I'm not in time. To me, yesterday and now, there is no difference. To you, neither. It was the same consciousness yesterday, no difference. That which is different is what is perceived.
Yeah, but I seem to be able to revert to this presence, awake now, for example. But that seems to be out of reach.
You cannot revert to this presence. What is there to the presence? In order to revert to the presence, you need to have left the presence.
Mm-hmm.
So who is it? Or what is it that has left the presence and reverts to the presence?
I don't really know how to say my... Yeah, it's not clear. Basically, all I can say, if you ask me, do you ever sleep? I would say, I don't know. Probably not even. But this thing with sleep is a little bit murky still.
Okay, so
okay, so I agree that the consciousness now is the same one as yesterday.
no, let's go slowly, okay? If you say I go to sleep. What does that mean as an experience?
Just a blankness. Everything's blank. I close my eyes, I wake up, and then the world appears again. But in between, there's nothing as far as I know.
Okay. How do you know that there is nothing? In order to know that there is nothing, experientially, you need to perceive this nothing.
I can say that there was an absence before I went to bed, and I wake up. I can tell, oh, nothing happened in between event A and event B.
I could agree with you that you don't have a recollection of perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you can say.
Yeah, that's what I mean by nothing.
Yeah. But does that mean that consciousness is not present?
I can say no because the body's alive still. That's as far as I can go, but not because of some kind of experience that I can, like you said, that I can recall. I can't, while I'm in deep sleep, I can have the thought, am I consciousness? Am I here? That hasn't, without that, I'm not too sure how to validate that.
Whatever you pretend to be your experience during deep sleep, you cannot pretend that you are not conscious during deep sleep, because in order to experience, you should be able to experience your absence. If you claim I am absent as consciousness in deep sleep, if you say it from experience, it means a weird experience whereby consciousness is experiencing its own absence. How is it possible?
It's not possible to experience
Therefore,
absence.
Whoever makes the statement that consciousness may not exist never makes this statement from experience. It's a belief system. It's a green little human beings on Mars.
So basically you're saying that I must have been there and said, hey, look, I wasn't there, and that's impossible.
What I'm saying is that if you believe that you are absent, that in deep sleep, you are kidding yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know it doesn't sound right. I'm just saying that just the experience itself doesn't, I mean, I should be able to say with certainty, no? If there's some kind of experience that I can bring and say, yeah.
Well, you are seeking certainty where you cannot find it. You are seeking certainty, phenomenal certainty. And that, there is no certainty in the phenomena, because any phenomenon that we deem to be certain could still be a dream. Therefore, we cannot derive any certainty from any perception, because it could be a dream.
Yeah.
Therefore, an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So, you would like to have a proof of something through a means of proof, perception, which no matter what would leave you dissatisfied, because you cannot reach the certainty you seek there.
Mm-hmm.
Any knowledge about consciousness, any question you ask about consciousness, such as, is consciousness present during sleep? You cannot derive it from anything which is perceived by consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So stop seeking it where you cannot find it. That's the only reasonable, intelligent conclusion you can reach. Stop seeking what you are seeking where you cannot find it.
Mm-hmm.
The only place where we can get information on consciousness, for instance, is consciousness present during sleep, can only be found in consciousness, through the experience of consciousness. And when we ask consciousness, did you stop and go? Do you stop and go? What does consciousness say? No, my dear.
Yeah, what I'm saying is this. So if I ask, like if I check consciousness form, and it is here every time it is checked, then I can say it must have been also during deep sleep. See, it must have.
No. Because this assumption is, what you're saying implies that consciousness is in time, evolves in time. That's the hidden assumption you're making.
Yeah, the thing with sleep is through reason rather than, and when I say it, I can revert back to consciousness, I mean this, like I can check, am I conscious? And it's like, yes. But I can't seem to be able to do that in deep sleep. Or I can say, am I conscious? And then check, and then I can say, yeah, that must also have happened. But this certainty that I have now, I don't seem to have
You
in
are
deep
seeking
sleep.
it in the wrong place. But you have questions about consciousness. You see, for instance, you ask a question, and my answer it, you are seeking it, the answer to your question in the wrong place. Or your question is based on a hidden assumption that is not verified by the experience of consciousness. I am taking you to the experience of consciousness, and something, you have changed over the years since I have known you. These changes don't manifest right away with this experience that I never sleep, that consciousness is. It comes gradually to you through these investigations that it's a process that has been started and does its work within, and at some point we realize, oh, yeah, I never sleep. And when we realize that that has been the case for a long time. But when we were trying to ask ourselves about this experience, Francis talks about that I never sleep, we were looking in the wrong place. You see? And at some point we realized, it's like, let's assume this. You have a headache. You take Tylenol. At some point down the road, you realize, oh, my headache has disappeared. You don't know when, at which point it has disappeared. But you see, same thing. I don't feel to be aware at all times. And then, at some point, say, oh, yes, that's my experience. In the meantime, I go back to the experience of Tylenol. Let's assume, instead of asking yourself the question, do I still have a headache? And then the answer will be no more, because Tylenol has already its effect. instead of having this asking the right question, you ask the question, do I have pain in my foot? You may have or may not have pain in your foot, but it's irrelevant to your headache. In other words, you are not asking the wrong question. You don't know about your headache. It may have disappeared, it may still be there. At some point, in this, because all metaphors have their limitations, in fact, with the first glimpse, it's as if when you take the Tylenol, the headache would disappear instantaneously. But you ask the wrong question about the pain in the foot, the pain in the knees, the pain. If you were to ask immediately the question, do I still have a headache? Looking at your head, you say no. Right. At some point, finally, you look in the right place. You look at your head. No headache. Same thing here. Am I conscious? You look at the right place. I'm always conscious. I am consciousness, always. And never, it's a light that never goes off. And besides, the experience that it could go off is impossible. That we can understand. How can I experientially verify the absence of consciousness without being conscious? And if I am conscious, consciousness is not absent. Therefore, the absence of consciousness is an impossibility experientially. Are you getting that? It's impossible experientially. It's tantamount to also the possibility of absolute nothingness. Absolute nothingness is an impossibility. Why? Because there is already something rather than nothing. If there is something rather than nothing, whatever is can never go away. That which is never ceases to be. That which is not never comes into being. Nothing comes out of nothing. That's from the vantage point of reality, the same understanding as there is from the vantage point of consciousness, that the experience of consciousness is an impossibility. Because there is always consciousness. That's simple. Why is there always consciousness? Because consciousness is real, out of time. Time comes out of consciousness, not consciousness out of time. Space comes out of consciousness, not consciousness out of space.